Okay, untap, upkeep, draw. Oh, look who it is. It's a planeswalker. How the heck do they work? Back when Magic was created, it was a generic fantasy game with heroes, spells, and monsters. As with most great things, however, it soon changed, and began to take on a flavor all of its own. One of the key elements to Magic's success has been the concept of the multiverse. Each new Magic the Gathering set takes place in its own world called a plane. The recurring characters in the Magic mythos are planeswalkers who can, well, planeswalk, or travel from plane to plane. This allows the creators of Magic to maintain a kind of continuity while always bringing players to new and exciting worlds. Eventually, I plan to do a series going deep on each of the planes and how it has been changed over time. Today, however, I want to focus on the observers, the fantastic beings who live outside of the petty dealings of the planes. I'm talking about you, of course. That's right, each and every player of the game is considered a planeswalker. That's our role in the game. We fight epic battles against our fellow planeswalkers, using the planes as our battlegrounds. When planeswalkers were first introduced, they showed themselves to be nigh omnipotent, ephemeral beings who could craft and shape worlds at their will. After an in-universe cataclysm, and due to the need for a more relatable character base, planeswalkers were reduced to a more manageable power scale. While still ultra-powerful and long-lived, the planeswalkers are no longer just stand-ins for gods. Of course, when we talk about Theros, or if we talk about Amonkhet first, we'll find out that the planeswalkers can still rival the gods, and possibly even bigger threats. Planeswalker cards first appeared in Lorwyn, with one for each color of magic. They immediately made a big splash, even though, mechanically, they can be a little difficult to understand. As a fellow planeswalker, the card is treated as representing another player, who is not technically a combatant, but who comes to your aid. Planeswalker cards count as permanents on the battlefield, but they can be attacked just like players. Damage can also be redirected to them from the player who controls them, and any damage that they take reduces their loyalty to you. When their loyalty hits 0, they peace out and leave you to fight your own battle. A planeswalker has several abilities, each of which also affects their loyalty to you. If it's something they want to do, their loyalty goes up. If it's more taxing, their loyalty goes down. You can activate one ability each turn, so you have to make them count. As cards go, planeswalkers represent a lot of value, usually having substantial effects on the game, even if you only get to activate them once. Some old players returning to the game don't like planeswalker cards, finding them too strange, or believing that they represent a fundamental shift in the way the game is played. On the whole, though, there is no denying that planeswalkers have had a positive effect on Magic, serving as avenues for both complex decision-making and seriously cool effects. But what of the planeswalkers themselves? I don't think we'll have time to explore all 35 planeswalkers to date, or the 88 cards which represent their influence, but what I am going to cover is the original Lorwyn 5, and how they impacted the game. Starting with green, because I'm unpredictable like that, let's have a look at Garruk Wildspeaker. At 4 mana, he comes down with 3 loyalty counters, and you can immediately create a 3/3 beast. A 3/3 for 4 is already not bad, and if left unchecked, he can do that 2 more times. The real power in Planeswalkers, however, is their versatility. If you tick him up to 4, he untaps 2 of your lands, allowing you to play a 2-drop for free. The real power of his +1, however, is that it ramps you. If you play a 5th land, you have 7 mana available on turn 5, which should be enough to cast anything you would want, especially in Limited. Once he's at 4 loyalty, you can activate his Planeswalker Ultimate, which is literally Overrun. Of course, this only helps if you have creatures on the field, but if you spend a couple of turns making beasts and generating extra mana, we can assume you have a fairly reasonable board state. Garruk is the quintessentially green mage. Standing at over 8 feet tall and aligned to the forces of nature, he's a powerhouse in big stompy decks, or decks that go wide with the eventual goal of running you over. Next up in reverse Wooburg order is Chandra Nalaar. Chandra is a hothead, and her card does a lot to get that across. She's more expensive than Garruk, but comes down with a whopping 6 loyalty, which I guess tells you that if she's on your side, she's really on your side. The other use for such high loyalty is her -X. She can immediately kill the biggest thing your opponent has, or, if you're stable, ping your opponent to the face and go up to 7. If left unchecked, Chandra can ultimate in 3 turns, which is 1 more than Garruk, but what you get is a one-sided board wipe and half your opponent's starting life total. Aside from being a natural firebug, Chandra is also the embodiment of the impetuosity of Red, with a keen dislike for being told what to do. She'll toe the line if she thinks it makes sense, but has little patience for people who stand in her way, and the power to move them if they won't desist. Now in reverse order, let's go back to black. Liliana Vess is the mistress of the graveyard. Her +1 is meant to tear apart your hand and hopefully fuel her ultimate. At 5 mana, the hope is that she comes down at just the right time to nab your opponent's last card, which is probably their bomb. Of course, if there's something specific you need, her -2 will tutor it up. It won't draw it, however, so that's generally conceived as being not that great. In the right shell, of course, and with removal or strong blockers, her +1 can help fill the yards until she gets to 8 or above, and then she'll raise all the dead things for your personal army. All hail the Queen of the Dark Realms. Though she does have necromantic leanings, it's really Liliana's outlook which displays her alignment to black. Conceited, self-centered, and power-hungry, Vess has nonetheless succeeded in her goals of seemingly inexhaustible youth and beauty, with a knack for using whatever is at hand to accomplish her goals, even if others might find her methods objectionable. Next up we have Magic's Man of Mystery. Jace Beleren is the most popular, infamous, and reviled of the Planeswalkers. He's had the most reprints to date, and tends to be seen as the cover boy of Magic. In his original incarnation, he was the cheapest to cast at only 3 mana, but as is fitting, his abilities are also the most deceptive. His +2 ability, and yes, it's +2, puts him at 5 loyalty. And if you think your card quality is going to be slightly better than your opponent's, you might not mind letting them draw a card, since you'll be getting one too. If you don't want them to have the extra card, you can -1 him and get one yourself. Of course, if you alternate between the two, he'll still be gaining loyalty and generating resources. Your opponents might not bother to attack him immediately, since he's being so nice and giving them cards. But watch out when he gets to 10 or 11, since he'll nearly always be at odd loyalty, because his ultimate puts the top 20 cards of target player's library into their graveyard. If you even need an ultimate, after all the card advantage he generates, this should strip your opponent of most of their resources, since they've also likely been drawing extra cards. As a mind mage, Jace's past and even his appearance are a matter of some mystery, or have been up until recently. Inquisitive, selfish, and adept at reading people's minds, Jace is the perfect embodiment of blue. Last but not least, and a personal favorite of mine, we have Ajani Goldmane. Notably, Ajani is the only non-human of the original Walkers. He's also arguably the weakest. At 4 mana, you really want to do more than just gain 2 life. But that can still count, as if your opponents start attacking Ajani, it's analogous to gaining a lot more than just the 2. His -1 can also be strong, especially in a token strategy, or anything where you go wide. It does require creatures, however, or he basically does nothing, and quickly dies. Ajani's ultimate is likewise situational. If you're at a high life total, which you will be assuming you were able to protect him for 2 turns, you will have easily the largest thing on the battlefield. If, however, with no creatures and low life, your opponents ignore Ajani and continue attacking you, he might just make a 4/4 and then you die. Ajani was the least well-defined character-wise, and he's also the one of the original 5 to go through the most changes. Each of these walkers will get their own episode at some point, What's interesting about the original 5 is that they all cost 2 mana of their own color, assuring you are solidly in that color to play them, or that you at least have to work to make them fit. They each fairly well embody the feel of the color they're in, and offer an avenue for serious advantage over time. We'll revisit Planeswalkers soon, but for now, I think I've talked long enough, so I'd better move to my end step and pass the turn.